Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar of our Core 3 program. My name is Efrem Bekele. I am an Atlas Core Fellow and also a Youth Engagement Fellow for Youth Power to Learning and Evaluation project at Making Sense International. Today, I'm joined by 3 of my colleagues and 2 of the YouthLead ambassadors are in this call. And whenever you share the video or other resources, feel free to use the hashtag YouthLead Global and hashtag YouthLead. So with that, I'll proceed with a very small introduction about today's topic. So according to the Inter-American Development Bank, Latin America and the Caribbean have one of the largest skill gaps in the world. Though talent development systems in school exist, the focus of degree pathways and curriculum have not been updated to include the 21st century skills. And this, at the same time, results in poor student performance compared to other regions. But also we have observed a lot of new startups in these 2 regions. And in response to these challenges and existing realities, YouthLead ambassadors from Jamaica and Guatemala will join today in a shared conversation about the need to critically evaluate the development of youth entrepreneurship and skills. And both of them will share their first-hand experiences, and also they will navigate the skills categories of youth within their home countries and by extension to the wider region, and explore different approaches for the skills development in youth in their own region. So we'll have an hour to cover the session today, and we will start by introducing the team members. Sarah will introduce our team members, and then we'll share some information about YP2LE, which is Youth Power to Learning and Evaluation. And then also I will introduce our YouthLead Ambassadors program. And next to that, I will introduce our speakers today. And right after that, we'll proceed to the presentation. And they will share with us why youth decide to become entrepreneurs at early stage of their lives. And also they will share with us best experiences of using entrepreneurship for development. And finally, also they will share with us how to engage community in this process. So once they finish their presentation, we will also open the floor for question and answer. And finally, I'll come back to share information on how to join YouthLead and use the best out of it. I'll give it to Sarah to introduce our team and give some highlight about YP2LE projects.
Thanks, Efrem. And thanks everyone for joining this morning. It's great to welcome our 2 YouthLead ambassadors on this important topic. My name is Sarah Sladen. I'm the Senior Youth Engagement Advisor with YP2LE at Making Sense International. And before we dive in, I just want to give you some background on Youth Power and also give you a sense of who our team is. We actually have a pretty big team at YP2LE under our director, Christy Scott. We also have our knowledge management specialist, Maria Brindelmeyer, and a vast comms team with Gloria Schultz here today, Cole Simcoe, and of course, Efrem. We also have another Atlas Core Fellow, Gael, and our Director of Communications, Eva and Natasha. So I know you will not have met everybody on our team, but I want to give you a sense of the folks behind the project. I also want to give you some background about YP2LE, or Youth Power to Learning and Evaluation for short, if you're not familiar with what that is. YP2LE is supported by Youth Power. It's a USAID funding mechanism for youth-focused programs, evaluation, and research. And the goal of YP2LE is to generate knowledge and promote learning about positive youth development, or PYD for short. PYD is a holistic framework for youth development. What that means is that we assume all youth have assets that should be invested in through inclusion, access, education, and training. And the framework also promotes youth agency that can be best supported by an enabling and supportive environment for young people. These are things like strong youth networks, supportive adults, youth-friendly services and resources, and youth-friendly policies. Included in under YP2LE is youthpower.org, which you might be more familiar with. YouthLead.org serves young changemakers alongside another platform called youthpower.org, which is focused specifically on youth serving international organizations. And both platforms are supported under the YP2LE project with the idea to connect our community, share resources and learning on PYD, And in the case of YouthLead.org, support young change makers like our two YouthLead ambassadors here today and other young people working for change in their communities. And so I'm going to turn it back to Ephraim to say more about the YouthLead platform and how you can engage that. But again, I want to welcome you on behalf of YP2LE and thank our YouthLead ambassadors for speaking on this topic today. Thanks, everybody.
So YouthLead is a huge global hub, and we have currently we have more than 12,000 members. It's a space, a platform for young people to network, to access peer advising, and also to share with other peer fellows regarding in relation to their projects. So generally, YouthLead.org was launched at the 2018 World Bank Summit, World Bank Youth Summit, and today we have different projects, resources, links to funding opportunities, and also other materials on the site. So the platform is a global hub, usually for young people aged between 15 and 35. And mostly they are working for a positive change and impact their communities, could be as advocates or activists or volunteers or even sometimes as entrepreneurs. So if you are a young change maker, if you consider yourself as a leader, as a young leader, you can join the site by just creating a profile, and this won't take a lot of time, and in just less than 48 hours we'll accept your application. So once you are a member, you can also access and share resources. You will have the opportunity to network with other peers and also join online discussions, and you can also stay updated to opportunities and events. So usually these are the 6 things that we offer on YouthLead.org. First one is resource, the other one is people, people in your circle, people, members from more than 200 countries, and also access to funding. We have more than 1,000 funding opportunities on the site, and also events. Usually we have currently different events on the sites from different countries from across the world. And also you will have the opportunity to upload your own projects under your profile and get more visibility for the things that you do. Next slide, please. So the picture that you are seeing right now on the screen is the current cohort of the YouthLead ambassadors. They are from more than 20 countries. They represent Africa, Asia, South and Central America, Europe, and East Europe, and Eurasia also. And for the current cohort, this is the third cohort, about 3,000 people or young change makers applied, and we've selected 22 young change makers as YouthLead ambassadors. And this program is a 6-month program, and it will be announced for the 4th cohort also around September 2021. So these ambassadors are leaders in their community. They are young change makers, and their responsibility is to share information about YouthLead with their networks, and also increasing engagement with YouthLead through discussion groups, social medias, and also network with other young change makers. So today's speakers are 2 of our YouthLead ambassadors, Anaí from Guatemala and Shanna from Jamaica. I'll just give you a very short bio about them, then we'll proceed to the presentation. So Anaí is from Guatemala. She's currently a YouthLead ambassador for the Youth Power to Learning and Evaluation activity, and she's an advocate for youth development. And 2 years ago, she founded a youth network for integral development, in abbreviation, RIDER, where she works across 4 overarching themes to address the needs of youth in the Western Highlands regions of Guatemala. And her primary focus is education, reproductive health, gender equity, and entrepreneurship. Her central mission is to provide young people with platform to positively address key challenges and issues impacting their community through advocacy and development of leadership skills. Our second speaker is Shanna from Jamaica. She's also a current YouthLead ambassador for the YP2LE program. She's a certified digital marketing professional and a youth engagement speaker with over 6 years of experience in financial services industry, where she is tasked to promote financial literacy and empowerment to youth across Jamaica. She has mentored and coached over 200 college students via the JNY's Aspiring Youth Program, in abbreviation JNY, and has served on the National Youth Month Advisory Committee. And her vision is to connect youth to opportunities that will promote positive youth development. So welcome our speakers and welcome our attendees. With that, I will give it to Anaí and Shanna to take over, and please enjoy the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ephraim.
Thank you so much, Ephraim. All right, great. Thank you so much, Ephraim and the team at the YouthLead. So we will go ahead and start by saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We will start by sharing a quick video. And this will pretty much be our introduction as to what we are really speaking about today.
The world is changing faster than ever before. One thing we can all be certain of is a future filled with uncertainty. The problems we face today and unknown challenges of tomorrow can only be solved by cultivating a different set of skills through education. These skills enable children to create, adapt, and thrive in an uncertain future. They will enable future generations to transform their communities and the world around them. In Latin America and the Caribbean, the need is severe and urgent, with adolescents suffering from lack of opportunity and skills to succeed in work and life. There is a wealth of conversations about the need for education to step up to this mandate. The question is, what is already being done and how? 100 and the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, will search Latin America and the Caribbean for shining examples of innovations in education fostering 21st century skills. At 100, we help improve education through impactful innovations. IDB is devoted to improving lives and has been focused on economic, social, and institutional development in Latin America for over 60 years. Together, over the next year, we will shine a spotlight on education initiatives in Latin America and the Caribbean, helping children flourish inside and outside formal education. We invite innovators to contribute to this effort.
All right, awesome. So the future is in fact filled with uncertainty, and our youth should really be charged to cultivate a different set of skills to not just enable a business idea and concept, but to also create, adapt, and to thrive. And through today's session, our goal is really to highlight what we have noticed through our work and through our individual lives and roles, the opportunities that would have presented themselves for youth in both their personal and professional lives. But what really is youth entrepreneurship, and what is the whole concept of skills development? So youth entrepreneurship, as defined by Francis Chigunta from the University of Oxford, it says that the practical application of enterprising qualities such as initiative, innovation, creativity, risk-taking into the work environment, either be self-employed or employment in a small startup firm, using the appropriate skills necessary for success in that environment and that culture. And Celeste from a Personal Excellence blog said that skills development is really about, one, the process of identifying your skill, and two, developing and honing these skills. So in essence, then you'll see that youth entrepreneurship and skills development, they are really about life skills and life development. So in looking at what we're saying now, skill development, what are the trainings that's being offered, the experience, the growth, the learning, and the competencies that come with all of this. Next slide, please. So the Forbes magazine would have said that these are some of the key skills that are needed for youth, for young people today to really be a 21st century entrepreneur. We're talking about being able to influence, being flexible and not too risk averse, being organized and having great communication skills, and also a great work ethic, and looking to at problem solving and being organized. Now, if you can share with us in the chat, you can let us know, aren't these pretty much life skills? not just looking at what entrepreneurship is, but these are also about life skills, being a good problem solver, being organized, and all of these. So we're saying then that the skills of the 21st century entrepreneur is also and are also skills for the modern day and future youth. We will now move on over to the breakdown of why youth entrepreneurship skills are important for development.
Thank you very much, Shanna, for that introduction. And of course, we want to explore a little bit more about why youth entrepreneurship skills are important for development. And so to make an informed analysis on that, we're going to take a look at the importance of youth entrepreneurship skills in both Guatemala and Jamaica. And we're going to do that, first of all, by getting to know some figures and some context as to how youth entrepreneurship skills and life skills, by that matter, can be developed through sectoral interventions. And so I want to take a look first at the Guatemalan case. So for those of you who don't know where Guatemala is and where it's located, let me tell you, Guatemala is a small country in the northern part of Central America. And so I want to give you some background as to what is the Guatemalan context for youth. And Guatemala actually shares this characteristic with most of the Latin American countries, and that is that youth account for more than half of the population. So that means that Guatemala has a unique opportunity to build on a economic dividend from here to 2050, because youth population are the majority in the country. So of this youth population, it is estimated that 140,000 enter the labor market each year. That is, they complete their courses, they complete their education, their formal education, and they enter the labor market. But only 28% of those 140,000 are able to find and to land formal employment opportunities. So we see a very, very important gap there. And that is where we're seeing migration surges, of course, and other barriers that Guatemalan youth face in their path to adulthood. And that can also be pinned down to the extremely violent environment that they can face. And so those are some of the key drivers of migration as well. We're seeing it on the news every time. And I think that that stems from this gap of, only 28% of youth finding economic opportunities, finding income generating opportunities. And that is where I believe it's very important to enhance youth entrepreneurship skills, because they present a unique opportunity for Guatemalan youth to stay in their country and to grow and thrive and be successful in our country. So those are some stats from Guatemala. And so I want to share along some cases and some models that we've seen that are being successful, that are, being the silver lining along this stats that we're seeing and the environment that we're seeing. And the first case that I want to talk about for youth entrepreneurship skills and youth development skills, if we skip to the next slide, please, we're going to see the Puentes model, which is a project that has been implemented in the Western Highlands, which is the region of greatest need and where we see, the most need in youth. And so the Puentes project is actually a project that focuses on vocational and training for young people ages 15 to 34. And so the model here, and what is very interesting about the Puentes project, is a USAID finance program implemented by World Vision, is that they promote youth skills and youth entrepreneurship abilities from a very young age. So what they do is identify young people in their communities within their own contexts, and they leverage that environment to make them succeed and to develop youth entrepreneurship skills. And we can actually see startup companies being led by 20-year-olds, by 19-year-olds. And the Fuentes Project has been focusing on that. And they do so in a sectorial approach in where community councils are being brought to the table, in which local authorities are being brought to the table, and they are, key stakeholders in creating this opportunities and this enabling environments for youth, so they can start their path in the entrepreneurship world, and they can provide also mentorship, coaching, and everything that youth need to be successful. So that is one model that I believe is being very successful, that I believe is being, very impactful in the Western Highlands region. And it's building capacity in young people. And what strikes me the most about this is that they're doing it at, they're identifying youth at a very young age. And so we're seeing that impact along the way as these young people become role models in their communities. They become role models in their respective departments and municipalities. So that is the Puentes project. And also the second model that I want to talk about that is being implemented in Guatemala is one that's actually being led by my youth organization, which is the Integral Network for Youth Development. And we've actually partnered with Puentes in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe youth were presented with this unique opportunity to leverage our technology skills and to provide technology solutions in that transition that we were seeing. And so what we did, actually, we partnered with Puentes, which is the project that I presented before, and we created a virtual modality for the implementation of the entrepreneurship courses, but we added an element of mentorship and coaching. So we used interactive content and actually developed interactive content that could be accessed through messaging platforms, instant messaging platforms such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and we divided groups and youth from different regions. Actually, this program reached more than 200 youth in 19 departments in the country. And so we were sending interactive content and self-administered evaluations, but we were complementing that with live sessions, with mentorship sessions, facilitated by experts. And also we were giving youth the opportunity to be coached by local entrepreneurs. So these were people that were in their communities, that were successful in their respective industries, and that were providing coaching and that were providing mentorship for youth and giving them their lessons learned, life experiences, how they went about financing, and how they address all these challenges that they face in the way. So this program is actually very successful here, and I am very happy to share it with you because it was one initiative that also focused on the lean startup model, which is one that's focused on a lot of testing, a lot of feedback, a lot of customer development. And so it was very fun to introduce youth to these concepts. Now, to take a look at the Jamaican case, I'm going to turn over to Shanna so she can share a bit more about her experience in Jamaica.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Anaí. And unlike Guatemala, in Jamaica, the youth population is actually less than 30% based on our last population estimates a few years ago. We are actually due for another one soon. But you can see that in Jamaica, the youth population itself is 27.9%, much less than what exists in Guatemala today. And of that amount, we're looking at about 25% who are actually entrepreneurs. And why have they become entrepreneurs? The root cause is really because of, one, the inability to find a wage. And we're looking at 38.1% said that they decided to become self-employed because they didn't know how or didn't have an opportunity to have a wage or a salaried job. And 34.2% actually, they wanted the desire for greater independence. And we know as young persons, we are looking at persons who they don't want to stick to that 9 to 5. They're working longer hours. They're looking for greater opportunities, greater purpose in what they want to share and the companies and so on that they want to be a part of. So I will share now two concepts or platforms or avenues that really have been introduced to the Jamaican landscape that has impacted youth development, that have impacted the entrepreneurial mindset. And the first one we'll look at is HEART, NSTA Trust. In Jamaica, it's really known as just HEART. Everyone knows it as HEART, but it means the Human Employment and Resource Training National Service Training Agency Trust. And it has been around for over 30 years, almost 38 years or so. And it is the largest provider of vocational training in Jamaica and the Caribbean. We're looking at a capacity to include vulnerable youth from all different walks of life. And through these initiatives by HEART, there is assessment, training, certification. We're looking at volunteerism, mentorship, and also work experience for professional development and workshops. The HEART projects and the HEART agency itself has been seeing tremendous improvement in the past 5 years due to a somewhat reclassification or reorganization of their services and heavy promotions. So in the past 5 years, they have seen their enrollment drop by over 95%. We're looking at about 98 or so percent. And in terms of even the engagement, we're looking at a broader cross-section of youth who are being encouraged, being enabled, and being supported by the services of HEART NSTA. And we are also looking too at, they don't just focus on the job training, they're also looking at mentorship and adult continuing education. So for persons who would have completed high school and they don't know the next step, HEART has been able to assist persons such as those. And through their professional services, we have seen where major companies have been impacted through the assistance of participants who've come through the HEART program. And in terms of these institutions, we're looking at the training from HEART. It is both institution-based, on the job, as well as volunteerism and mentorship. So you would see then that all aspects of what the youth culture and what the youth needs are, such as mentorship and coaching, those are also offered through the HEART team. Our next project is one that actually started a few years ago, and it ran for a few years, 2012 to 2017, and it's actually the SEBI project, Social Enterprise Boost Initiative. It was a project funded and supported through USAID as well as Jane Foundation, a member of the Jamaica National Group. And this is where the primary focus was really to create an enabling business environment for social entrepreneurship. And we're talking about social entrepreneurship, we're talking about giving back, we're talking about looking at the future and sustainability and how this has impacted operations to create a profit-making business that actually supports the community. Through this program though, SEBI really, they wanted to increase public awareness of social enterprise. We are looking at the increase in employment, increase in investment, revenues for community, and socially activated programming. Through the campaigns, through the initiatives, through the overall concept of what they offered, we are seeing where the SEBI project itself was so popular and so well known that companies that we did not even knew existed, they rose in terms of what they would have been doing through the community initiatives and what they would have been doing through their socially responsible avenues. So the national economy itself would have been quite profitable or would have been increased somewhat through this SEBI project. And the program itself really helped micro enterprises to increase employment, increase revenue within their target communities, and it focused too on transforming the social enterprise landscape in Jamaica. There was a lot of support, they facilitated the growth of the companies, and they also increased public awareness. And once you are seeing more details about what young persons are doing in a specific category or a specific area, persons are more inclined to want to find out, okay, how does this work? How can I get access to opportunities such as these? And how can I even buy into the concept of social enterprise management and social enterprises overall? One of the major success parts of this project, and in terms of their execution and their expansion, was their Buy Social campaign. This is where they encouraged persons to really support local companies. And when I say local, I mean from what persons would call, in Jamaica, they call it the grassroots programs. So who is in your community who is making a particular type of, they're making sustainable bags, and they're looking at impacting youth through a particular deaf community. So the concept of SEBI would have focused on all of those, and they got quite a number of wins. I'm talking about over 20 social enterprises and entrepreneurs impacted. We are talking about a different segment too of their program, where persons from Silicon Valley would have impacted our local youth entrepreneurs to develop and execute their ideas and their plans in different ways. Participants were able to learn a broad cross-section of ideas, and through the SEBI initiative as well, there would have been a greater inclusion of different aspects of community. So at the end of the program, the SEBI team would have launched different material and frameworks and concepts, and they didn't just put it on the internet so that, you know, persons who are able to view it can see, but they would have put these documentation together, and they also included them in Braille so that, you know, persons of the visually impaired community can also be a part of that concept. So between the Heart Trust NSTA, who would have been encouraging, engaging, and enabling youth when it comes on to whether you've left school, whether you're seeking continued education, whether you also have a skill and you want to get certified, Heart would have been able to assist in those areas. And through the SEBI project, even though it has ended, the SEBI project itself would have impacted the social enterprise space within Jamaica. I personally would have been quite enthused by the whole concept of what would have been happening in our communities, and how community impact and community involvement would have been engaged through these projects in particular. And so now we will move on to the community impact itself, where we will both share from the examples that we shared earlier, the specifics of the community involvement and how this impact would have really been accomplished in Jamaica and Guatemala.
Thank you very much, Shanna. And of course, it is very important to take a look at the community impact that these programs have had, and to also hear real stories about the impact that the development of youth entrepreneurship skills has had in communities. So I want to start by sharing some examples from Guatemala. And these are 3 young people that actually participated both in the Puentes project and in the virtual startup projects that we've promoted. And so the first thing I want to note here is that, as I mentioned before, I think the key success element to these programs were that the environment was taking into consideration. I think that youth were identified and they were leveraging their environment to identify opportunities in industries that were actually near to them and that were actually big in their communities. So we saw 3 stories here that I want to mention. And the first one is the impact that these programs have had in agribusinesses. Youth in rural communities here in Guatemala are actually very prone to not wanting to involve in agriculture, as they perceive it is outdated, or it is something that they don't want to pursue. They look more for jobs in urban areas. But what the program did was actually give them access to technology models, to technology tools that would enhance agricultural production. And so they were interested in replicating models for agribusinesses. And we saw lots of young people participating from the programs that were actually starting their own agribusiness startups. And they have been now linked to bigger producers. And some of them are actually even exporting their products now. So that was a key impact, and that has been a key impact of the Puentes project. I want to talk about as well on the focus on gender. Of course, women account for a lot of the youth population as well. So it is very important to enhance women's skills in entrepreneurship. And the next story I want to talk about is one from a young startup owner in the Western Highlands who's become a role model in her community. She's actually 21 and she's running her own bakery shop, and now she's starting to move to another communities, and she's been starting to also make workshops for local women where she shares her experience, where she encourages them to work in the industry. And of course, she provides now employment opportunities for women in her own community. So that was one of the success stories that resulted from these programs as well. And we also saw, a surge in the community tourism as well. There are many youth who started, their own companies focusing on community tourism. And the important part here is that they were taking also environmental conservation measures, and they gave this twist to the industry, adding, volunteer programs to conserve the environment, volunteer tours to conserve some protected areas. So that was one of the ideas that originated from this startup workshops. And now we're seeing the impact in the community. Now we're seeing the impact that youth have had, and we're seeing successful actually businesses grow from these models and these programs that build the capacity on youth for the entrepreneurship skills. So we can switch to Shanna if she wants to share a little bit more of the community impact that these programs have had in Jamaica.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so in terms of our impact in Jamaica, I will focus on two areas, and these are both very different from what Anaí would have just mentioned. She would have spoken about pretty much how the agribusiness itself would have been impacted, youth development in her country. And I will look at the areas of marketing company, a marketing agency that really was founded and is thriving on idea, opportunity, and courage. And then I look at a social enterprise initiative called DEFCON, which has been about inclusion, innovation, and transformation. Now, these are both projects and companies that I've personally seen, I've personally been involved with in some way or another. And I must say that it's captivating work that is being done by youth in our country in completely different aspects. Mind you, there are a lot of other companies and that are doing well, but based on the concept of this presentation, and just to contrast what our overall conversation has been, we want to look at how these have been building out their own spaces within the Jamaican context and also across the Caribbean and even internationally, because for one of the projects, for UCA in particular, they've launched a region-wide aspect of their company, and DEFCON in itself has also been recognized on an international scale. Now, for UCA Jamaica, it was actually founded by a college student who saw the idea that, young persons who are in college, they wanted an opportunity to get some real hands-on work experience while being in school. As was mentioned earlier, one of the key avenues or the key reasons why young persons start a company is because they think that they don't have the opportunity for a salaried job, and then they also don't think that they have the opportunity now to be independent. So Christopherson Nunes would have started this company, and it has been creating a great wave of innovation and impacting a number of youth island-wide. And through his company too, he would have also encouraged other persons, mentored other persons to also go ahead and launch their own spaces within the concept of what youth entrepreneurship is about. So I would make reference again to the fact that there was an idea, the opportunity came about, and then the courage by the entrepreneur himself would have been there to actually go ahead and start this company. And they were also a part of the SEBI initiative. And you would have seen a link just posted in the chat where he would have been featured recently by USAID, where he spoke about the fact that, through the SEBI project, which, as I mentioned, SEBI ended years ago, and the community impact is still being felt. Through that SEBI project, he would have been involved in a number of accelerator programs, a number of trainings, and would have been impacted too, and would have learned from international companies or international entrepreneurs, even from the Silicon Valley. Next, something that I really find as such a great momentous occasion too was when I actually learned about the whole concept of DEFCON. Now, DEFCON is actually a community of young men and women who make coffee. but they're not just making coffee. They are enabling a community of deaf people to thrive in their career and across the broader society. So let us think about, at times we are looking at children who may not, who are of a particular, not able as what society would call a disabled child, but then the fact that they can see that persons who are like themselves are in the capacity and in a social space where they're smiling when you order your coffee from them. When you actually go to an event and see them in their capacity, you're just totally awed by how interactive they are. They're always smiling. They're always just so encouraging and so engaging. And the fact that they're what other persons would call disabled, it in itself stands out. So the concept of DEFCON itself and the overall idea that it's a community that is welcoming, and they're welcoming of everybody across the society. There's no thought about, okay, I am unable to speak, or I'm unable to hear. But when persons would probably come into their spaces, they are teaching individuals, they're teaching customers sign language, they're teaching children, how to say thank you when they get their items, when they buy them, and so on. And so that impact of the community and what they have been doing over the past few years, and as I mentioned, they also would have become a bit more popular, well, in my view, through the SEBI project. And in terms of looking at the overall concept of, just these young people who society would have sometimes thought of not going to make it, and they're creating a space that is just so impactful. So two very different concepts here. One would have been for persons who, who are looking to just get something different, who are looking to get an idea, looking to launch a business, and looking to impact persons through wider entrepreneurial ideas. And then on the other hand, we have DEFCON, where they are looking at enabling a community that a lot of persons would think of as being disabled. So the concept of DEFCON, UCA, and the overall SEBI project, which I again mentioned, was a wonderful opportunity to highlight young people and what they would have been doing in Jamaica, has been a great success story about these skills development and these impactful ideas from Jamaica. So we will now hop on over to how we can promote these youth entrepreneurial skills for development.
Thank you very much. And yes, we've identified actually 4 main elements as to how we can promote youth entrepreneurship skills for development. And the first one I want to talk about is community. We've mentioned it before, and it's very important to have an enabling environment at the individual level, at the family level, at the community level, to foster this entrepreneurial skills, and to, of course, create spaces where capacity is being built, where skills are being developed, so that young people are enabled in their path to entrepreneurship. The second one that I want to talk about is the curriculum, the importance of incorporating vocational and technical training into curriculum. How can we go about that? Well, we can, of course, have conversations and spark conversations with decision makers, with key stakeholders, to update and improve the curriculum, and of course, incorporate this essential aspect, which is not only, as we've said before, skill building for entrepreneurship, but also for life. And so, Shanna, you want to share the next one?
All right, awesome. So the next is really about providing access to entrepreneurial hubs. In Jamaica, again, we have seen an increase in co-work spaces, and I have 2 here, which is the hub co-working space, as well as the co-work JA. And this is a creative space. So, as young persons, as entrepreneurs, we're looking for spaces that are going to bring out our best selves and bring out our creativity. And so the increase in the access to these entrepreneurial hubs has been a great avenue with confirming and promoting youth entrepreneurial skills. And these spaces also provide an opportunity for entrepreneurs to have an address. A lot of persons would think that, oh, you need a brick and mortar to have an address, but the opportunities exist that you can actually have your mailing address for your business be a part of these entrepreneurial hubs, which in itself is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs. And the next area is about mentorship and empowerment. And next slide, please. In terms of looking at what we as young persons, or what persons before us would have done to impact our mentorship and empowerment, how are we looking at private sector engagement and partnerships? And how with these partnerships and engagements have access to resources been an impact or been impactful on us. I would have mentioned DEFCON and UCA earlier, and the fact that they were a part of such a major project in Jamaica would have impacted, their access to resources and different areas and publications and so on. And throughout this entire process, there has always been a concept of learning. So what are the business management skills that persons who have been before us and us now as young persons or young entrepreneurs coming in, how can we pay it forward so that more young minds are created and are positive in terms of reaching these entrepreneurial skills that Forbes have described as the key skills of the 21st century? The youth really have been, and they really should be excited about what they will learn about entrepreneurship skills and development. And as we mentioned earlier, it's not just about the entrepreneurial skills, it's about life skills, creativity, impact, problem solving. These are all what we're looking at when we speak about these entrepreneurial skills for development. Anaí?
Thank you, Shanna. And so we're going to jump on talking a little bit more about our own updates, our own experience, and how we as individuals, both in Guatemala and Jamaica, are, assisting youth in recognizing their potential for skills development. And I want to talk first of all about my experience, of course, working with my youth organization. I was mentioning before, we've had the opportunity to partner with USAID funded activities. And what I take a look at is an approach that goes both into rural youth and to urban youth. So through the first organization, we aim to assist urban youth with the capacities that they need. And we've done so by programs as the one that I've exposed before, the Lean Startup workshop. And we also want to create those, and we also want to reach out to youth in more underserved areas and isolated communities. And we do so by building a community structure of leaders. So we've also created a community structure that reaches out to those youth in communities in the rural context. And through Puentes and through other projects that we've also partnered with, we've seen spark in the agribusiness, as I was mentioning before, and we've also reached way more communities than we've initially projected, and that is because through this enabling environment where youth are, encouraged by their community leaders, they're encouraged by their system, they're encouraged by their, stakeholders that they have around them. That is when they seem more interesting and, they engage more, and they, of course, are more lean towards starting their entrepreneur path. And so we've done that through these associations. And of course, we hope to keep partnering with key stakeholders and partnering with key programs to develop skills in youth. So we want to share your experience in Jamaica.
All right. Yes, awesome. So for me personally, I have been focused at the start of the pandemic, actually, and on sharing or putting together different skills, training, courses, promotions, whatever is happening, so that I can engage more youth. So I've actually used my own personal accounts to just put together a bit of concepts, international training courses, different programs that persons may be interested in. And I've actually seen the feedback where I would have shared, let me say, for example, a training about digital marketing, and the persons would have reached out to me after completing. And may I just say that most of these courses have been free. I'm actually known to find all of these freebies. I do share them, and the joy really comes when at the end of a session or at the end of a training, a conference, and a course, when someone reaches out to me and say that, thank you for sharing this information. So in terms of just looking at my own personal sharing of concepts and courses, that in itself has been part of my own experience in trying to share more when it comes on to the concept of persons who would want to develop themselves in such a key and impactful way for different areas, whether it be for entrepreneurship or just to expand their personal and professional lives. Also, as as part of my my job, I am actually in charge of quite a number of youth, and I have been pleased that I've been able to impact such a wide cross-section of youth when it comes on to financial literacy and empowerment, digital marketing, coaching, mentorship, and through the JNY's Aspiring Youth program at the Jamaica National Bank, at JN Bank, sorry, we have been impactful in the community, sharing more, going into the community groups now too, and also engaging and enabling young persons to recognize and understand their truest potential. And I must also recognize and say thank you to the YouthLead team, because they would have also propelled me in terms of sharing and as someone mentioned recently, being crowned in terms of all of what I would have been doing before, but also sharing in a new capacity through this YouthLead platform. So it is greatly appreciated. And these are just some of the things that we would have been doing when it comes on to our own impact in our country and in our community. And that is it. Thank you so much. I believe we're now open for Q&A.
Yes, thank you very much, Shanna and Anaí. I think it was a very interesting experience sharing and all the stories from Jamaica and Guatemala. I would say that I already know many of now, by now I already know many of the startups, the creative startups and social entrepreneurs in Guatemala and Jamaica. Ryder, Sebi, Devka, and people were talking about coming to the shop of the coffee shop to Jamaica. So it's very interesting. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. So it's time for now question and answer or share thoughts in relation to the topic. And I would invite our audience to unmute yourself or raise your hand or drop the question in the chat box if you have questions for Anaí or Shanna. But meanwhile, giving that chance, I would also love to share two questions to both of you. The first one is, how do you, I mean, social enterprise is a big, is a new trend in Africa right now, but also it has been there without knowing the concept or the principles. So how do you differentiate social enterprise and other business in Jamaica or Guatemala? Like, do you have like a very clear standard or principles to differentiate these two entities, or is it because of the intention of the business? That's the first one. The second one is, how are you measuring impacts? I've heard a lot of impacts from Ryder also and Sebi. I've heard impacts, but also in order to support these startups as a youth entrepreneur, what's the mechanism that you use to measure impacts? Is this the number of the new employees they're hiring, or is this the production, expansion of production and services? How are you measuring that? That's the two questions I have for both for Anaí and Shanna. Feel free to explore some ideas on these ones. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much for those questions, Ephraim. I think one of the things that really stand out when it comes on to social enterprise in Jamaica is that Jamaica in itself, we are a very community-based. We are very community-based in some great aspects. So there are a number of companies, or not just companies, but there are a number of organizations that are geared towards enabling community interaction. So let's think about a particular community that their focus is on encouraging women entrepreneurs. So we're talking about sewing, whatever skills that you think that they'll need to create their own revenues. So that's something that would have been happening or has happened a lot in Jamaica. And something I must mention too is about the launch of our Jamaica Social Stock Exchange. So that in itself, I believe, is quite unique. I put a link to this in the chat, and you can get more information on what exists. So the impact of just the social concepts in Jamaica has been so impactful that they have launched that aspect of the stock exchange. And we're looking at where community involvement has been increased, where communities are stepping up and are finding solutions, I guess, to some of the problems that we would have. And as I mentioned, with our population of youth below 30% at this time, there is a greater need to impact where we are and in our own space. And due to COVID as well, we are quite limited by a number of areas. And you'll find too in Jamaica that a lot of persons usually move from the rural areas to the urban areas. And that in itself poses a number of risks and issues. So if you're in a particular community and you as an entrepreneur, and I'll use another company, Brescia in particular, it's just a group, it's a brother, two brothers, and they decided to start making bags on their veranda at their house in their community. And that concept itself has grown so much that they're looking now at employing additional persons within their community. So the concept of the social exchange too is not just focusing on the idea that a big buck will come, but it's about enabling the involvement of the community. So I think that in itself has been working for Jamaica and could definitely be the solution to a number of the issues that we have here locally.
Thank you so much. And well, I would just want to elaborate on what Shanna was talking about. And of course, in Guatemala, yes, the social entrepreneurship environment is also being, very, very popular, and it's also being a trend right now. And what it is about is for young people to introduce this innovative concept for the industries. As I was mentioning before, a great example of that has been how they've transformed the tourism industry into making it more community-based, making it more community approach. And by that, they have just, propel the industry a lot more, especially under these times in which, free space activities are being needed. And so that is one way that young people are doing. They're taking a look at it from an innovative perspective, and they're just adding elements to it to make it more interesting. And of course, to address community problems, of course, we can talk about microfinancing companies that are also being led by young people. These are aimed to provide financing to underserved communities, to enhance income generating opportunities for women and for youth particularly, and also for indigenous peoples. So what we're seeing now with the social entrepreneurship environment is particularly young people taking a stake on it, and of course, leading models and leading programs so that they can foster more social enterprises.
Well, thank you both. We've learned a lot today from social enterprises, how they can sustain business and employment, and also how skill development can support entrepreneurship. At the same time, youth entrepreneurship can also bring skills development, and also how creativity or creative projects or creative ideas can turn into an actual business or social business. So thank you very much. For the interest of time, I'll just take 3 more minutes to talk a little bit about YouthLead and how you can join and contribute to the site. So YouthLead.org is like I mentioned before, it's a platform for young people, and we really encourage you to join and explore different resources and materials there, and also a huge network of young change makers. And by creating a profile, you can also post contents as in resources, blogs, short videos, events, funding opportunities, and also discussion groups for the topic that you really care about. And once you're a member to the site and you have more contribution to the site, you will earn points, and this becomes a badge. And every month also, as a member, you'll get a newsletter of various opportunities from the site, thousands of opportunities, I would say. And you can also connect with us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at YouthLead Global is the name. Next slide, please. So our events are, all these events are sponsored by various sponsors, and YouthLead have been promoted by them, and also resources, events, various funding opportunities have been shared by them. So we want to say thank you to our sponsors also. Next slide, please. So we have different upcoming webinars between now and July. So on the screen, you can see upcoming webinars similar like today's. So we have 2 upcoming webinars in June 17th and June 25th, and in July we'll have 3 more webinars related to social entrepreneurship, human rights, family planning, reproductive health rights, education and technology, peace building, agriculture and environment. So we invite all of you to go to our link where I'll just drop the link of event site on the YouthLead.com so that you can access all these events. You can just sign up and attend all these YouthLead webinar programs. Next slide, please. So thank you very much, our participants. Thank you very much, our speakers. Thank you very much, Cole, Sarah, Gloria, and for organizing this webinar. So we have another webinar coming on June 17th, which will be on combating child marriage through effective family planning and reproductive health and youth advocacy. So we again encourage you to go through the site and explore opportunities and also share resources as a young change maker. And with that, I would say thank you and see you next time. Please stay safe and have a great time. Bye-bye, everyone.